Today we're exploring something creamy, spiced, and somewhat puzzling if you've never encountered it before. What exactly is eggnog? And why does this rich, custardy beverage only appear during the winter holidays when it seemingly vanishes the rest of the year? If you're picturing a thick, golden drink topped with nutmeg at a Christmas gathering, you're on the right track. Yet there's far more to this story. Eggnog is a fascinating creation that blends centuries-old European traditions, colonial adaptation, and seasonal scarcity into one sweet, indulgent, and often spiked holiday staple. So settle in, because we're going to investigate what makes eggnog, well, eggnog, right here on Stories Behind Everything. Fundamentally, eggnog is a rich beverage traditionally crafted using a combination of milk, cream, sugar, eggs, and warming spices. The flavor is distinctive. Imagine sweet and custardy with undertones of vanilla, nutmeg, and cinnamon. Depending on the recipe or regional variation, you might also detect hints of clove, allspice, or even bourbon, rum, or brandy if it's been fortified. And if you've experienced a properly made homemade version, you understand that velvety, frothy enchantment that no store-bought carton can quite replicate. However, here's the surprising part. Contemporary commercial eggnog isn't genuinely produced the traditional way anymore. Today's mass-manufactured versions typically depend on stabilizers, thickeners, and pasteurized ingredients to extend shelf life and ensure safety. Nevertheless, the essence persists. A thick, sweet, and moderately spiced beverage that tastes unlike anything else in the dairy section. So where did this peculiar drink originate? Eggnog actually possesses aristocratic origins, quite literally. Before it became a holiday tradition, it descended from medieval British drinks like Posset, a hot mixture of milk, eggs, and ale or wine consumed by the wealthy. Eggs and dairy were expensive commodities during this period, available primarily to upper classes. Subsequently, these rich beverages served as both indulgent treats and purported health tonics, particularly during cold months when warm, nourishing drinks were valued. When European colonists arrived in America, they brought these drinking traditions with them. However, the ingredients had to adapt. British sherry and brandy were costly imports, so colonists began substituting Caribbean rum, which was more affordable and readily accessible through colonial trade routes. Later, as American whiskey production expanded, bourbon and rye became popular alternatives. By the time of the American Revolution, eggnog had become so beloved that George Washington himself served a notoriously potent version at Mount Vernon, featuring rye whiskey, rum, and sherry that reportedly could knock guests off their feet. Here's the aspect that confuses people. Why is eggnog seasonal? Despite being available year-round in theory, it vanishes from store shelves come January. But that wasn't originally a marketing decision. Historically, hens laid fewer eggs during winter months due to reduced daylight, making eggs more precious and expensive during the coldest season. Cows also produced less milk in winter. This scarcity made egg and milk-based drinks particularly special and appropriate for major celebrations like Christmas and New Year. When commercial bottling commenced in the early 20th century, refrigeration technology made dairy distribution possible, but the seasonal tradition persisted. Manufacturers discovered that limiting availability created anticipation and desire. The richness of eggnog also made it more suitable for cold weather. It's a warming, comforting beverage that feels appropriate when temperatures drop. And during the holiday season, that association became unbreakable. Eggnog, as we recognize it, owes considerable evolution to American adaptation. What started as a British aristocratic indulgence became a colonial celebration drink, then evolved into an American Christmas tradition. The addition of spirits wasn't merely for flavor. In an era before refrigeration, alcohol content helped preserve the mixture and prevented bacterial growth. Traditional recipes often featured quite high alcohol levels, sometimes reaching 20% or more. Why eggs and dairy? These ingredients provided richness and nutrition during winter months when fresh produce was scarce. The warming spices like nutmeg, cinnamon, and cloves weren't just for flavor. They were expensive imports that demonstrated hospitality and abundance. Serving eggnog became a way to showcase prosperity during the darkest time of year. Each family introduced its own variation. Some preferred it thicker, others lighter, but the fundamental formula remained consistent: sweet, frothy, and subtly spiced. By the early 20th century, eggnog was a standard offering at holiday gatherings throughout the United States. And soon, commercial dairies began bottling pre-made versions for convenient purchase. One of the most characteristic concerns about early eggnog centered on raw eggs, which could harbor salmonella bacteria. The eggs in traditional recipes remained uncooked, relying on alcohol content and cold storage for safety. However, health officials grew increasingly worried about foodborne illness risks. During the mid-20th century, commercial producers began pasteurizing their eggnog, heating it briefly to kill bacteria while attempting to maintain the creamy texture and flavor. While some enthusiasts contend that modern eggnog lost some of its authenticity following this transition, others appreciate that today's versions are safer and more accessible. Still, if you ever discover homemade eggnog at a holiday party, there's a strong possibility someone is using a generations-old family recipe with raw eggs and generous spirits, risks and all. Interestingly, eggnog is a distinctly North American phenomenon in its current form. While similar egg-based drinks exist worldwide, like Mexican Rompope, Puerto Rican Coquito, or German Eierpunsch, American-style eggnog remains relatively unknown in many countries. Some international visitors describe it as excessively rich or strangely thick. That's largely attributable to the heavy cream content and egg yolks, which create a custard-like consistency that conflicts with expectations for a drinkable beverage. Nevertheless, eggnog has gained dedicated followings abroad, frequently among American expatriates or adventurous food enthusiasts during the December holidays. And with the emergence of specialty food imports, interest is expanding, albeit gradually. Some craft producers now offer year-round eggnog or innovative flavors like pumpkin spice or chocolate variations. So is eggnog actually healthy? To state it plainly, absolutely not, if we're being honest. Traditional homemade eggnog can contain 400 to 500 calories per cup, with significant amounts of fat, cholesterol, and sugar. The eggs provide protein and vitamins, while the milk adds calcium. But the heavy cream and sugar content mean this is definitely an indulgent treat rather than a health beverage. Modern concerns about cholesterol and calories have led to numerous lightened versions using skim milk, egg substitutes, or reduced sugar. Though purists argue these modifications compromise the authentic experience. There are alcohol-free versions available, particularly in stores catering to families. Most commercial eggnog you'd locate in your typical supermarket contains 0 alcohol, allowing it to be sold in regular grocery stores rather than requiring liquor licenses. For those wanting the traditional spiked experience, bottles of rum, bourbon, or brandy are typically nearby for customers to add themselves. So there you have it, the strange, rich, and storied journey of eggnog. It's not quite a drink, not quite a dessert, and definitely not something you'd want every day, but it possesses centuries of European tradition behind it, an American adaptation that made it uniquely ours, and a seasonal mystique that keeps people anticipating its annual return. Whether you adore it or can't quite stomach its thickness, eggnog is one of those things that captures a unique aspect of holiday culture. It reminds us that even the simplest things, a creamy drink, a dusting of nutmeg, a winter tradition, can have surprisingly deep roots stretching back to medieval feasts and colonial celebrations. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you proper recognition for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this exploration through stories behind everything. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories discovered through the smallest details.